So this here is the very first computer that I ever built, almost 20 years ago. And I'm just going to take a look at the case here. Got the good old Intel Inside sticker there, Pentium II. And this was an ATX case. This was actually one of the first ATX cases, or at least that was the kind of the new standard at the time because they were breaking away from AT. And I got a DVD drive there. Actually, the first DVD I ever watched was actually on this machine. And I actually still have the exact same DVD here. The Matrix, the first one. And we got a CD writer in there too. So here it is. It's an FIC board, VB601. And just taking a look over here, we got 2 ISA slots in there, 4 PCI, 5 PCI, AGP, which is kind of the precursor to PCI Express that all the boards use now. You have a slot-based Pentium II, the ETX 20-pin, and we got 4 RAM slots there. I started out with 128 megabytes, which is this first strip right here. I have some others that I put in sometime after. Not sure what the actual sizes are on this, but I know the board is expandable to 1 gigabyte, so I think I'm going to bump it up to 1 gigabyte. Then you have your IDE controllers there, and then of course also the floppy drive controller, which I am going to do floppy on it. Both 5 1/4 and 3 1/2 if possible. And I already replaced the battery there for the motherboard. I'm just taking a look at the back here. Fairly basic stuff here. Got a parallel connector for older printers. Serial connectors, can't really say that I ever really used those. Older mouses would have worked with those. This for mice primarily would have used the PS2 ports. This was one of very, very early USB. USB came out maybe a year or two before this. And these are, of course, 1.0. So I'm going to try to go up to 2.0 if possible through some of the expansion slots. And these are some of my original cards here. So I have a ATI Radeon video card. I'm not sure which model this is. I want to say that it was a 64 megabyte, but I'm really not sure. The reason I originally liked it is because it had the S-video out, so you could actually port it out to a TV, which was pretty cool at the time, before HD was a thing. And of course you had inputs also, so you could actually record video with this. And the Sound Blaster by Creative Labs. Very, very cool sound card. These were kind of before onboard sound was a thing. And this is one of my additional USB port cards, which I just found the drivers for. And this is one of my 80mm cooling fans, which did not look this good. I just cleaned out all the dust from it. Which this case really only has just one air intake fan. Doesn't even really have an exhaust fan, really. But I'm probably going to get a little slot cooler here to blow out some of that too. And then of course we have the power supply here. This is not the original power supply that I had for the system. This one's slightly later, listed as Pentium IV compatible. But it should serve this purpose just fine. So, why am I rebuilding this system? Well, this has been laying over at the parents' house for at least the last, almost 15, 20 years. I originally used this system for, I think, 2 or 3 years. When I first built it, I had Windows 98 on it. A couple years after, in 2001, I upgraded it to Windows XP. And then shortly after that, because I was really into doing gaming at the time, just needed more power, I went to an AMD based system, which I had for a couple years, probably 2 or 3 years beyond that too. And this one kind of got cannibalized for some of the parts when I built the system after it, but since that time I kind of kept most of my old parts, but I never really put it back together again. But out of all the computers that I've owned over the years, this is kind of the one that I'd really like to see run again, just because it was the first one I ever built. So that's what I'm going to try to do, and try to restore it back to its original configuration. Going to try to run Windows XP on it. Hard drive situation, I have a bunch of them. I'm not sure what's going to work. Probably going to stick with IDE. If possible, I may try to get some serial. I do have an IDE to serial ATA adapter, so I might be able to run one of those. If not, I think running an SSD in here might be a little bit of overkill. I'm not sure if that's even possible, but I don't really think I'd get much of performance benefit out of it. Plus, I don't really think XP runs that properly. So, kind of the challenges that I'm facing at this point is mostly going to be drivers, trying to set up a startup disk for a floppy drive to have the system files on it so I can boot from it. I can't remember offhand whether Windows XP was a bootable CD or not. If it is, then that kind of eliminates the need for the floppy, at least for startup. Of course, getting Windows XP installed, getting past the activation of that and making sure that it's a semi-legit copy, getting all the updates for it. I did happen to lose my network card, so I did order a PCI compatible, just 10, actually I think it's a gigabit LAN card, so that'll go in there. So this should be internet capable. Probably going to run Firefox on it, since that browser was updated until I think June of 2018, which this video is only a couple months later. So I should be able to run that browser. What else? Well, I think that's going to be pretty much it for this part. So as I run into hurdles, I will update you, but that's it for right now. So the current state of the project is I'm able to boot up and get into the BIOS, but I don't have a working floppy drive or hard drive presently. So I do have a CD drive, and of course I'm trying to get that working. So the main thing is getting some type of bootable media, whether it be a floppy disk or a bootable CD. And the Windows XP CD, I believe, is bootable, so I'm going to try to boot from that. But the bottleneck that I'm running into right now is that I have the ISO here for Windows XP Service Pack 3, but I do not have a CD burner on this machine because nothing has optical drives anymore, so my laptop does. So I've actually transferred this file to my phone, and then I have a CD burner on my laptop, and then I'm going to transfer the file off to the laptop, burn it, and then try to boot from that CD. And I went through my collection of hard drives here. So I got a 250 gig, 80 gig, and a 20 gig. The 20 gig is not going to be suitable, obviously. And the 80 gig only has a 2 megabyte cache, and the 250 has an 8 megabyte cache. So it seems to be the best of the older IDE drives that I have remaining. So this is going to try to be my new hard drive. So in the next step, we're going to try to wire up this hard drive, get the CD drive working, and try to boot. So I ran into another roadblock of sorts. Tried a couple times unsuccessfully to get my 250 and my 80 gigabyte to work, and it just would not. Kept on hanging up in the BIOS. And I finally figured out why, and it appears that this motherboard has a 36 gigabyte restriction on hard drive. It's not able to recognize anything above that. There was a BIOS update from 2001 that's supposed to fix that. However, since I don't have a working floppy drive or any way to load up a floppy drive as of right now, I can't do the BIOS update. So what I'm going to try to do is to load XP onto the 20 gigabyte hard drive, and that's kind of starting and going through that setup right now. Seems to be working so far. So I'm going to try to get XP loaded in that, and then add the floppy drive, and then add the files that I need on a floppy disk, and then try to do the BIOS update and hope that I don't brick the motherboard. But as long as I can do that, then I can probably just reload Windows on the 250, which is what I would like to do. So probably going to take a little while for this to go through and do its thing, and after that we'll see if the system actually runs. Moving on here, I do have XP loaded. The system is running and stable. However, it does not seem to like any sort of overclock. The moment that I move anything past the standard clock speed, it seems to just kind of get hung up and not load XP. So I'm still stuck running at my 400 megahertz, that is the stock speed of the processor. Still haven't tried to upload some floppy disks, and it appears that both of my floppy drives were bad. So I had to get a new one. Also, 2 out of my 3 disks didn't seem to be working, and didn't seem to be responding to any formatting. So I'm not sure if it was the disks or the floppies or both. So I do have some new things that came in today. Pretty much everything I ordered actually came in today. So what we have here, this is a IDE or SATA to USB adapter. Does both. So that's going to let me prepare my hard drives if they need any files moved to or from, or to see what contents are on some of my old drives. Since both of my floppy drives were failing, I got a new one off of eBay for about $8.50. And the date on this is actually from 2006. So it's probably at least 15 years newer than what I was using. Seems to be pretty clean, in good shape. Hopefully it works. Didn't think I'd ever be buying one of those again, but here we are. Raided the parents' house for some floppy disks. They don't throw anything away. So I have text prep from 1992, some driver disks, old modem drivers. So I can rewrite all these and kind of repurpose them for whatever I need to put on them. Mainly the first thing is to make a startup disk. I think I have the files to make a 98 Windows ME Millennium Edition startup disk. So I'm going to try to put that onto one of these, and then put the BIOS update on the other one and try to do that. It may not work because I have a very early version of this motherboard, so I don't think I have the latest PCB, so it may not actually help me, and I think I may already have the update file on it. So if that's the case, I'll have to figure out a more creative solution to get around the hard drive limit. I have something now that will allow me to put this machine on the internet. So my gigabit LAN card came in today. And also, since there's not really very much of any kind of sort of exhaust fan on this system, the power supply doesn't really exhaust any air, and neither does the CPU. I have a slot cooler, so pretty big there. That should exhaust a lot of air out of the system. I don't really anticipate having any sort of heating issues with this. It runs relatively cool. I don't think I've even gotten this up to 110 degrees Fahrenheit at all. Under any sort of load. Also installed a iOmega Zip 100. So that was something I used to use back in the day on this machine quite a bit. So, and it also kind of fills up an empty slot there. So I will have pretty much all the slots filled up there now. So I'm just going to go ahead and install some of these parts, and we're going to go ahead and try to do that BIOS update. So a couple things here I just did. Went ahead and installed my floppy drive, and it is operational. And on the inside here, got my cooler installed. The LAN card did not work. For whatever reason, when I put it in here, every single time, no matter what slot it is, the system will not post. Just turns on and black screen and nothing else. The moment I remove it, everything goes back to normal. So either a bad card or some kind of incompatibility. So I'm going to have to find another solution for getting this machine to be internet ready. I went ahead and ordered, originally I actually had a Netgear LAN card in this. So I just went ahead and ordered another one, found it for like $3. It kind of sucks that I spent about $9 on the card that I just ordered, and it was actually a gigabit LAN card. So, total there's about $11 spent. If the new card does the same thing, then I'm going to have to probably resort to some type of USB solution. So, like a USB to Ethernet or USB to Wi-Fi adapter, which handily, there is a little USB port actually on the inside there, so it probably wouldn't be too hard to add that. Or, of course, I do have 4 on the back. So that'll be my solution there. The BIOS update, apparently I already had it done. And the problem is that my motherboard, you can see right about here, kind of hard to read, but that says 1.3. Apparently I need to have the PCB 1.4, which would have been a later run of this motherboard in order for it to work with the BIOS update and remove the 36 gigabyte hard drive restriction. So, I'm going to have to find either another hard drive that's less than 36 gigabytes, or I did also order a PCI to SATA and IDE adapter. So I may be able to boot off of that. The other option, if I can't do that, the other option should at least allow me to run other hard drives in tandem with this for storage. I think I did find some like Seagate Barracuda and Western Digital Raptor drives that were like 36.7 gigabytes. I don't know if that's just too much to work with this. They're pretty cheap, so I might just order it and figure it out. If not, then I'm going to probably be stuck on this old drive. And, the reason I want to change the hard drive so bad is this hard drive is actually from 1997, so it's old enough to drink. And I'd prefer to not be running on a drive that is that old. So that's kind of where it is for now. So I'm going to be stuck waiting for that SATA ID adapter to come in, and then also the LAN card. And when that does come in, that's actually going to use up too many slots, so I'm probably not going to be able to use this slot cooler anymore. So I may have to go to a single slot cooling solution, which I know those are out there. This is an Antec one. I think they make a single slot one also, which is what I had in this machine a really, really long time ago. And I might do 2 of them, maybe put one down here in the unused ISA slot, and then maybe another one up here in the one unused slot, because I want to have something that's below the graphics card there. So, kind of stuck waiting for parts. Also, one other idea I was kicking around here just to deal with this mess and all these they call them like ketchup and mustard colored wires here. Actually thinking about going to a modular power supply, and since this one kind of crams itself just above the CPU, I'm actually thinking about going with a SFX standard power supply. So it's a little bit smaller box. Should give me a little bit more room in here, and it's modular. So even though this won't be a case that has the tempered glass on it, thinking about doing the casemod.com cables and just making everything look super awesome and modern in here. Probably won't do too much with lighting or anything like that, because you really won't be able to see in here. But I think the cable management part of it would look pretty cool and maybe get a little modern touch to a really, really old system. So that's it for now. Probably won't be any more updates for couple days at least until my parts come in, and then I can try some more trial and error to get this a little bit further along.